Hi, so I am going to speak about sexual education, and the reason I chose this subject is because I feel like it's one of the most important, relevant, and dangerous problems in Mexico, and it's like one of the reasons we are the country we are in a wrong way, in the wrong meaning. And I feel like the problems this has brought to us over the years is that we have overpopulation. We have, I mean, everything goes from having an overpopulated country. If you have an overpopulated country, there's not gonna be enough food. There's not gonna be enough money for everyone. There's not gonna be enough school opportunities, job opportunities. Not everyone is gonna have a place to live. There's going to be a lot of hunger, there's going to be a lot of thirst, a lot of famine. A lot of people are going to have certain diseases, they're going to start being very vulnerable to everything, and like this is kind of very dangerous, I think, because this is probably a reason why people nowadays are called, or what we know called as known as criminals. And I feel like criminals are like also one of the biggest problems in our country, and it's probably one of the things that most of other countries recognize us for. You know, for the danger we have as a country. We are known to be the most dangerous country in the world, and that's a fact, and that's like the United Nations actually said that we're even more dangerous than Syria, which is a country in war, and I'm actually kind of shook about that, and I feel like that's why it really gave me the motivation to want to speak about it. And you know, I feel like all of these things that I just said, it's just all resumed, and it's just because of the reason of the lack of a good sex education in our country. And you know, for starters, the, the 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 definition of sex education that I found on this page in the internet, that it's called Planned Parenthood. It says sex education helps people gain the information, skills, and motivation to make healthy decisions about sex and sexuality. Planned Parenthood is the nation's largest provider of sex education, reaching 1.2 million people a year. This is obviously a fact from the United States, and I'm obviously want to focus on Mexico, but this just really got my attention because imagine how Planned Parenthood could actually educate you even more than school with, it actually made me reflect a lot, because how can something planned to help you have a healthy life as parents be more educated than going to school, which is the reason you go to school, like, to get school, to get educated. You know, also something I want to discuss in this video is why this is lacking in Mexico, like why a good system of sex education is lacking in our country. And I feel like that's mostly because there's this really strong word that describes the problem we have, and it's taboo. There is something in Mexico that it's called a taboo, and this represents the fact that most of the parents, like from nowadays to a lot of time ago, really have these big issues on letting their kids get educated about sex education, and getting to know new information and informating themselves and ask questions. And I feel like this is kind of wrong, because why would you not let your kids have a healthy life, you know? And I feel like we're one of the most religious countries in the world, and I feel like religion is mostly a big deal in it, you know, like most religions are really, really narrow-minded, and they feel like sex education is not something that we should be discussing, and it is not something that we should be talking about because it is wrong, and it is bad to enjoy your sexuality, because sexuality is, to religions and to many older people, is seen as something bad and something like to be ashamed of. And I feel like that's a really wrong idea of it, and that's not how we should be seeing it and be treating it, you know. And in my opinion, I feel like the SEP, the Secretaría de Educación Pública, should really focus a lot on joining programs to the normal system of education we have, and implanting some really good well-informed teachers and programs and books, just for young people to ask their questions and to feel free to have questions and to not feel ashamed or anything, and being able to have the resources. And I feel like that would really help our country to not be so overpopulated, because we cannot maintain so many people, you know. Like, we're not a first world country like the United States. It had a lot of people there's a lot of people living in that country, but the difference is that they're a first world country. They have a good government, and they have good medical resources, they have medical programs, they have great education, they have great educators, they have places they can go and ask their questions. They're more open-minded, and they're not as close as Mexicans. And I'm not saying like religion is something bad, but I feel like there's a lot of things we can improve in our country, like, definitely. And I feel like this, like, everything comes down to this, like every single one of our problems, like overpopulation, poverty, hunger, famine, thirst, homeless people, jobless people, abandoned kids, violence, criminals, the bad government, corruption, all of that. I feel like it comes down to having a bad education as a country, like a bad basis to just learn and be raised. Because if you have a good education, if you have a good moral education, which comes from home, it comes from home. Not only are you gonna have sex education in school, but your parents are a big part of it. Like, if your parents don't answer questions and they're not like open to the idea of you educating yourself, you're not gonna have a good moral. You're not gonna grow as a person. You're not gonna know what's good and what's wrong. You're not gonna know what's the difference between enjoying your sexuality and abusing of someone, of raping someone. Like, you're just gonna have this huge amount of questions inside, and you're gonna feel like you're wrong, but you still want to do them. And it's something natural. Humans do it, and that's how we're created. And I don't understand how some people can actually think it's wrong to want to have a good sexual education. The idea that they did that doesn't fit in my mind, and I'm kind of upset about that. And I feel like we can all be part of this, and I feel like it's also getting better with time. There used to be a time when no one was talking about it, like, not even in TV. There was all sorts of people, like if you ever talked about sex education, about your sexuality, you would be like a criminal. You would be like seeing something as something demonic. Like, you would be a prey of Satan or something. Like, I feel like there's been crazy times for sexual education and for this type of subject, but I also feel like we have improved a lot, and I feel like our morality has been better, and we're starting to talk about it more. We're starting to be open. There are programs nowadays called sex education, literally, and you can see them, you can watch them on Netflix. You can nowadays it's different, because even when you have questions, you can just Google your questions. You don't have to go to anyone and go through this wall of shame and this judgment of asking your questions and feel like you're doing something wrong, or feeling like you're being promiscuous or something like that. You don't have to go through that anymore. You can just Google them and no one will know you're asking your questions except for the computer in front of you. And I feel like that's a big advantage we have as the new generations, but I also feel like there's a bad part of it, and like it's the fact that you can Google something, you can be not well informed, you can mistake something or something, and then I feel like of course sexual education comes from other people with experience and people who have studied it for a long time and everything. And I feel like sexual education in school, it's different as it is in home. For example, in home you have a moral to be learned. You learn to be more respectful and to know what questions to ask, what is right to say and what is right to not to say. In school you get to know the facts, you get to know how to do it and how not to do it, and I feel like that's the important part. I also found this article on the internet that it really got my attention. And like the header, it says what is going wrong with our sex education. And this article was written by Mariana Lizárraga in November 3rd, 2017, which is a little while ago, but I feel like the facts are there and you can actually see the reality that we live. And it says, as of 2015, Mexico had 119,938,473 inhabitants. 52.4% of those were women, and about 18.5% of the female population was under 20 years old, like a rough estimate. And in the same year, there were 2,353,595,000 births, and 18% of those who gave birth were teenage girls. 49% of the population claimed not to have used any method of birth control during the first intercourse. In 32,752 cases of STDs were registered, with 85% of clinic appointments being requested by women. These numbers help us reach a pretty obvious conclusion. In Mexico, we're doing something wrong with how we approach sex and how we approach sexuality. This aesthetics really affected me and made me feel like we are doing something wrong in our country, and we can be actually compared to other countries and look how they have a better programs and have very more effective ways of teaching and learning sexual education. And this article also says Mini answered that this dilemma has a direct relationship with a country's level of income and development. There is a logic in this reasoning, as statistics tell us that around 90% of teenage births are nearly 95% of new HIV infections take place in developing countries. However, this cannot be the sole reason why Mexico stands as the country with the highest teen pregnancy rate amongst members the countries of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. I believe that there is an important contributing factor that somehow tends to go unnoticed. Because honestly, how do we expect young people to know about sex if we are refusing to talk about them? Like, if we don't teach them anything, how do we expect to be prepared and to be ready for having sex and to have children? According to this Mexican psychologist, Juan Pablo Arredondo, nearly 80% of Mexican parents avoid talking about sex with their children. And if they do talk about it, over 50% of them won't handle it well, imposing their religious beliefs over the facts, which is what I mentioned before. And often schools are not better at it. Perhaps the best way to illustrate my arguments is with my personal experience. She said that, like many other middle class Mexicans, most of my early academy life took place in private schools, which for the most part tend to be religious. In these schools, the sole mention of sex was a taboo, both by students' body and our instructors. Fast forward a couple of years, and I finally attended a secular school which provided some sexual education. It's very much a rarity in Mexico. As the Secretary of Public Education does not list sex education as compulsory course in academic programs, which it means that it doesn't include any type of programs for sex education in any school. And CEP is like the only secretary in charge of sexual education and any type of education in Mexico, which is a big dilemma. Also, I feel like there's a problem that many men can believe that what they see in porn is a reality, that they're going to find a hairless bombshell girl who will give her all of his satisfaction and will, in doing so, manfully achieve her own. Like, I feel like Mexicans, like, in a lack of sexual education and in a lack of reality, they tend to watch porn, and porn is like something really fake, and it really represents what acting is. And I feel like it's not. I don't know if I could say it's wrong to watch porn, but I feel like it's not something real. It's not educational, at least. There's this timeline that I found that it says that in 1930s, Mexico's first documented attempt at school-based sexual education. That was not so long ago. And after this first attempt, there were opposition from religious and parents groups and project cessation. Like, this project actually had to be canceled because so many parents and so many religions were against it that they thought everyone was crazy. And then in the 1970s, population growth concerns, like there was this huge growth in the population, which I was mentioning before in the country, and national school-based sexual education roll out. It's a successful civil society advocacy to overcome resistance. But then in the 1990s, through the turn of the century, like almost in the 2000s, international resolutions, regional commitments, and Mexico's transition to human rights-based CE approach. That means that sexual education was approved as a human right, as something like teenagers needed to be known. And then, for the first 2 decades of the 21st century, sex education is part of a broader sociological context. It started being taken into account as something needed and as something as a right. And then in the 1930s, group of parents and male secondary students in the 1930s claimed sexual education was part of a communist plot, defended the rights of parents, including the fundamental right to educate their children according to the principles and standards. They thought sexual education was something promiscuous. They restricted curricula content, arguing that it would corrupt young girls. But then the National Union of Parents and Families defended the rights of parents, including the fundamental right to educate their children according to their principles and values, and resisted some curricular content, but not sexual education as a whole. They started seeing it as something, but they didn't see it as something good. And then National Pro-Life Committee. They defended the rights of parents, including the fundamental right to educate their children according to the principles and values. Again, they resisted some curricular content specifically related to abortion, but not sexual education as a whole. They started to give some facts about sexual education, but they didn't do anything. They created a peer education program with emphasis on abstinence until marriage, family values, and open communication between parents and adolescents, which is very false to me. Group of parents in 2000 resisted curricular content, um, describing the textbook as pornographic and perverse. In these new textbooks, they only showed the human anatomy. They didn't show anything like too graphical or too explicit. And finally, National Front for the Family defended the rights of parents, including the fundamental right to educate their children according to the principles and values, and also resisted some curricular content specifically related to the presentation of gender and sexuality as cultural constructions, the normalization of non-traditional family structures, and discussions of masturbation, but they didn't talk about sexual education as a whole. I also found this very interesting article about this paper called El Universal, which is a very international famous article and newspaper. But what really caught my attention was the fact that the header says sex education in Mexico is lagging. Lagging means like going slow or going to the back or going backwards and not processing, not progressing. And like it said, Juan Martinez Perez Garcia, CEO of the Rights of Infancy Network in Mexico, said that Mexico is lagging and has a very conservative view towards sexual health education. He considers that free textbooks should be modified so as to include subjects such as the respect and autonomy over one's body, as well as sexual diversity. Perez Garcia added that this information is useful even for young children because it helps them understand that their body must be respected by everybody, even by their parents. And reflect that 8 of 10 children are abused, and they occur in safeguarding environments such as homes, schools, and churches. He assures that 21% of marriages in Mexico are between teenage girls and older men, while half of the teenagers in the country have unprotected sex in their first encounter. This really gives us a really huge idea and really huge vision about what it's like to have sex education in our country and what it's like to be part of this very closed, narrow-minded country, and what it's like to just know that you don't have the support from your parents or from the government or from schools to be able to ask questions, because like if you don't ask questions and if you just don't use protection and if you just do your thing, you're called promiscuous and you're called disrespectful and you're called selfish. But also if you ask your questions and you try to get informed and you actually go to your educator and ask them to answer your questions, you're called like promiscuous and like a whore man or a whore. And I feel like it's a really, really complicated subject to talk about, and I feel like the newer the generations are, the more open the subject is, and it's like it's something that really is in my mind, because I feel like the more we move on and the more we have new generations, this is gonna be more talked about. And I also feel like these Planned Parenthood programs are really, really good and really helpful for people who want to have kids but didn't get the sexual education they should have had. And I feel like these are very, very helpful, very useful. They're very informative, and there are a lot of them, and also most of them are free, and some of them you can find very near where you live. And this article says, what role does Planned Parenthood play in sex education? And I feel like that's a really important question to ask, because sometimes you want to have a resource to have um, uh, valid information and actually legit information. And I think Planned Parenthood is a good place to find it. And it says Planned Parenthood educations that reach 1.5 million individuals each year. 64% of those individuals are middle school and high school age youth. Planned Parenthood education departments provide a robust range of programming options, including evidence-based education programs for young people, adults, and priority populators, peer education programs, promoters programs, and other community-driven, culturally relevant health education programs, parent-family education programs, LGBTQ focused programs for LGBTQ youth and their parents or caregivers, their tutors, their legal tutors, training of professionals, including educators and school staff, community-based organizations, staff, and faith-based leaders. They also include outreach and single session workshops, which is really, really, really good. I feel like there's a lot of things for everyone and for every single age, and I feel like this is something that really helps anyone, like anyone who wants to be informed. It's really helpful. And this also says sex education resources. The best sex education resources is your local Planned Parenthood education department, is what I was saying. And I also feel like you can actually Google the page, and there's a section of questions if you feel like you're not ready to just go and ask and do your thing. There's this question section, and you can ask your things. And I feel like there's a lot of facts in Mexico that make us a really bad country and not well informed, but I feel like there's a lot of things to be done and there's a lot of things to change. And I also feel like we have a lot of resources as new generations. We have the internet, we have textbooks, we have many open-minded people. I feel like nowadays going to school and wanting to be answered on sexual education is not seen as something wrong or something promiscuous nowadays. I feel like it's something good, and people actually encourage you to ask your questions, to be informed. I feel like also violence is one of the many things not wanted children causes. Getting pregnant and not wanting to is of course one of the biggest consequence of having sex and not being sexually educated has. And I feel like this is what most of the people go through, and I don't know, it's sad, and I feel like there's a lot we can do. Thank you. And lastly, I want to share this article that I found about this page called IPPF, which is International Planned Parenthood Federation. And I feel like this article is big for Mexico, is big for our country, because it represents a huge difference and a huge step for us, and something that could be the start of a good sexual education basis for us. And I feel like I have the need to share it since it's the subject I want to talk about. It says, by young people, for young people, sexuality education in Mexico. This took place in the school called Universidad Autónoma de México. This is the largest university in Mexico and Latin America. A lot of young people were waiting to enter an informational fair sponsored by the school. Some held cups of steaming coffee, others giggled and played with their phones while shivering in the early morning chill, waiting to explore the many paths their future could take. There were hundreds of young people already inside, miling through long rows of booths with wide tables covered in leaf tales about various academic programs like engineering and public relationships. During the 8th day of the fair, about 120,000 students attend to learn more about potential areas of study as well as local cultural and sporting programs that serve youth. One of them like actually really stood out, and it was like near the entrance, one of the corner of a long row of booths. A large group of young people huddled over a counter internally, watching a demonstration of how to use a condom correctly. Others leafed through colder pamphlets on sexual transmitted infections and issues related to sexuality and low-cost condoms. I feel like I never talked about this, but one of the very big problems about of not having a good sexual education is that there's a lot of risks. Like you can have a lot of diseases and die. And also, the booth was sponsored by a local partner. It's called Nexon, and was staffed by adult and young promoters, including Daniel Martinez Garcia, and he was an 18-year-old volunteer health promoter. There's a video of this day and this fair, but I feel like this is a very important because more than 120,000 people were able to have this very small but very educational flash of how it's like to have a healthy sexual life. And I feel like it's really a proof of what we can do if we just have a more open mind and be more conscious. And I feel like there's a lot to do. We're already acting about it, and I feel like that's a good thing.